UFC Fight Night, Moreno versus Albazi from Rogers Place in Edmonton, Alberta, Canada. That is your flyweight main event, but another flyweight fight in the co-main event, but in the women's division, we've got Blanchfield versus Rose Namajunas. Two top 5 contenders go at it. Also, Derek Lewis, the Black Beast, on the feature bout of this card as well, taking on the undefeated Diniz. 14 fights on this card, a bunch of Canadian talent as well. I've got my Blue Jays jersey on, and yes, I know Toronto's not Edmonton, trust me, I know that, but regardless, we've got a Canadian card. Again, it's great when the fight nights are not on the Apex because we have UFC Vegas number 100 next week. Yes, number 100 with Neil Magny and Carlos Prates in the main event, so go make sure to join us for that video next week as we get things going. And folks, if you haven't yet though, make sure to hit that subscribe button down below for some more UFC here on the channel. Again, we're doing one of these every single week, of course, with that fight night card in the Apex next week as well. We will have our college football predictions out on Tuesday. We will have our NFL predictions out on Wednesday. We post daily NBA predictions as well, so we did post one earlier today, and we will have our Monday predictions out tomorrow morning as well. And now let's get into the 14 fight card, and we start things off with Jack Shore taking on Youssef Zalal. So Youssef Zalal's second run in the UFC has been interesting. Not like, oh, he's won some fights, he's lost some fights. No, like, he has just dominated guys so far in the second UFC run, and something that I really didn't expect was going to happen, right? I mean, Youssef Zalal was undefeated in the UFC. He was 3-0, and he runs into a guy in October 2020, a relatively unknown grappler from Georgia. Yeah, his name's Ilia Topuria. Zalal loses his first fight in the UFC to Topuria by unanimous decision. Topuria kind of just lays on him for 15 minutes. Nothing really happens in that fight. Regardless, Zalal then loses to Sungwoo Choi, loses to Sean Woodson, has a draw against Damone Blackshear, and now he's back in the UFC. Obviously, he had to fight his way back again in the promotion. I mean, look at Zalal's losses though in his first stint. Again, Topuria, Sungwoo Choi is not great. I'm not gonna say that wasn't, that's a great loss or nothing. But a loss to Sean Woodson and a draw to Damone Blackshear in a fight that Zalal arguably won isn't that bad, and he comes back, obviously. He beats Billy Quarantillo in his comeback fight in March of this year, submits Billy in the second round. Again, he comes in short notice, takes that fight and submits Quarantillo, and then after that, he goes in and beats Jarno Aarons in the Apex as well, submits him in the first round as well. Again, Zalal is back, and he's looking pretty good in the second UFC run. He's been able to effectively grapple the Moroccan Devil, but he gets a guy in Jack Shore who at one point in time had a lot of hype around him. He is 6-2 in the UFC, with his only losses being to Ricky Simone, and in his last fight to Joe Anderson Brito, in a fight where Brito kicked the absolute hell out of Shore's legs until the point where there was a huge cut on the shin of Jack Shore, and they had to stop the fight because you could literally see Jack Shore's bone popping out of his leg. Absolutely insane stuff. But Shore is 6-2, and again, this is a guy who's a really good grappler as well. Comes into the UFC in 2019 on that Hermansen Cannonier card in Denmark, wins the fight by rear naked choke, and again, beat Aaron Phillips by submission, beats Makwan Amirkhani in his last win 2 fights ago by rear naked choke as well. That's what Jack Shore is going to offer. He's going to try to go in there, and he's going to try to out-grapple you. This fight is as simple as, who do you think the better grappler is? I mean, we know Jack Shore can kind of strike, same with Youssef Zalal, but this fight is going to be won and lost on the ground. And guys, I'm going to actually go with Youssef Zalal to win this fight. I am going to somewhat buy in to what Zalal has been doing in this UFC run. I'm taking him to win the fight by unanimous decision. Again, the only guys that Youssef Zalal has been out-grappled by in his entire career, it's one. It's Ilia Topuria. Other than that, he's had fights where he hasn't been able to take them down. He's been, striking, and he's lost in, striking exchanges. I don't think Jack Shore is that much ahead of Youssef Zalal in striking. Again, I think they are even. Again, the only guy so far that we've seen Zalal out-grappled by is the champion, Ilia Topuria. Again, Topuria is the only guy to out-grapple him, and I know Topuria didn't go out there and submit Max Holloway, but he knocked him out, and God, we have to watch Topuria and Volkanovski too. I don't like it. I don't like it. I love Volk. I'm a huge Volk fan. I don't really want to see him get knocked out again, but I think that's what's going to happen when they fight in Perth in February. Unfortunately, I hate it. I hate it. Regardless, I think Zalal beats Jack Shore. I think he's able to take him down. Again, I think it's an evenly matched fight on the feet. But on the ground, yeah, I'm going to take Zalal to go out there and win. We saw Ricky Simone go out there and out-grapple Jack Shore. That was on Long Island back in July of 2022. I get it was a while ago, but again, we've seen Jack Shore out-grappled before. I think Zalal's able to do it here. I've liked the second run out of Zalal, and everything that he's done since being cut from the UFC has been great. So give me the Moroccan Devil. Youssef Zalal to win the fight by decision. I don't think he's able to get the sub against Jack Shore, but I just think he's able to outposition him. Give me Zalal to win the fight by unanimous decision. As we move on now to the women's flyweight division, we have got Jamie Lynn Horth taking on Ivana Petrovic. You've got Horth coming in at a minus 205 favorite, Petrovic on the other side at plus 170. Despite that, on Tapology, 79% of voters are going with Ivana Petrovic and 21% are going with Jamie Lynn Horth. This is our first Canadian on the card, which is great. I assume, again, Jack Shore and Zalal is the first fight of the night just because they want to get people in the building. And now you get Petrovic and Jamie Lynn Horth. You know, don't expect to be blown away by this fight. I'm just going to keep it a buck with you, right? Petrovic's 2 fights in the UFC is a loss to Luana Carolina in the Apex in 2023 by unanimous decision in a fight that she was like a minus 400 favorite in. And then it went over Liang Na in her last fight where, you know, Petrovic out-grappled her. Was I all that impressed? No, because who did she beat? Liang Na. And sure, great, she won the fight. But again, Liang Na has one of the worst grappling games that I've ever seen in the UFC. And Petrovic obviously exploited that. The Chinese regionals really don't give us the best grappling. And that's, again, what Petrovic was able to take advantage of in her fight with Na. And for Jamie Lynn Horth, the Canadian coming out of British Columbia, she's 1-1 in the UFC. Her first fight is a win over Haley Cowan. And then a split decision loss to Veronica Hardy last December. I believe that was the card in San Antonio, I believe it was. She was the LFA flyweight champion before coming into the UFC, but LFA women's champions don't always do the best once they get into the UFC. Horth's win over Cowan, again, it was a striking affair that wasn't great. I mean, she went out there and won it. There's nothing that's going to wow you in that fight. I'm not blown away by anything that I saw in that fight. Jamie Lynn Horth, again, just does everything, you know, well enough to go out there and outstrike her opponents. The Veronica Hardy fight, again, it's just Jamie Lynn Horth will not do too much damage. She'll just kind of try to go there and out-volume you. She'll try to clinch. She'll try to get the fight down to the ground. That's what she did to Veronica Hardy. I think these two are very, very evenly matched. I like Petrovic on the ground. On the feet, I like Jamie Lynn Horth better. I'm going to go with Jamie Lynn Horth to win the fight. I think her defensive wrestling is going to be good enough to keep this fight standing, and I think Jamie Lynn Horth just kind of makes this boring enough. I think she's going to win in those exchanges in the clinch. And also, guys, this fight card's in Canada, so if there's any hometown bias in terms of both the crowd and the judges, it's going to be on the side of the Canadian, Jamie Lynn Horth. So I'm going to go with the Canadian over the Croatian here. I'm going to pick Horth to win the fight. I think she'll get it done by decision. Again, I trust in her ability to keep the fight standing and in her ability to just out-clinch work Petrovic. And on top of that, again, I think she's able to keep it standing. And I think it's not going to be the most impressive strike game, but I do think Horth is going to be first to the punch a lot. Even in Petrovic's win over Liang Na, I wasn't that impressed. Yeah, she won the fight, but it took her 3 rounds to beat a horrible fighter in Liang Na. Give me Jamie Lynn Horth out of British Columbia, Vancouver. No, Squamish. I don't know my Canadian geography like that. Squamish, British Columbia, Canada. Give me Jamie Lynn Horth to win the fight by unanimous decision. As we go on to the bantamweight division, we have got Chad Anheliger, another Canadian on this card, out of Calgary, Alberta, taking on Cody Gibson. Gibson's 2-5 in the UFC. Now, Chad Anheliger, in all fairness, is not much better. He's 2-2 in the UFC. Yeah, I mean, these are 2 bottom-of-the-barrel bantamweights going at it here. We've got another bantamweight fight in our next one after this, but Cody Gibson is coming off his second win in the UFC. It is a win over Brian Kelleher, who is now released. He went in there and submitted Kelleher with an arm triangle choke in the first round. For Chad Anheliger, this is a guy who's 2-2, came into the UFC, beat Jesse Strader by third round knockout. I don't know what you want me to take out of that. Then is a loss to Alateng Ali by unanimous decision. Lost to Jose Johnson, who's the 6-1 flyweight by rear naked choke in the dying seconds of the third round, and then a unanimous decision victory over Charalampos Grigoriou by unanimous decision. Grigoriou ran out of gas in that one and just fell apart at the end of the fight, leading Anheliger to victory. I don't know what to make of this fight, guys. I think Cody Gibson should win. Now, this is my mindset behind a Cody Gibson victory here. Hear me out. He's Charalampos Grigoriou if Charalampos Grigoriou had a gas tank. I kind of feel like that's, and if Charalampos Grigoriou was slightly better striking, right? Cody Gibson's second run in the UFC, he's 1-2, right? He comes into the UFC back in 2014. His debut fight's actually against Aljamain Sterling of all people at UFC 170, Ronda Rousey versus Sarah McMahon. After that, he wins his first fight in June of 2014, drops back-to-back fights, his final one being on a fight night card headlined by Antonio Bigfoot Silva and Frank Amir. Is that the one where Frank Amir kicked Mergliata in the ass? Or was it Big John McCarthy in the ass for not stopping the fight? I think that was that. No, that was Roy Nelson versus Bigfoot. Never mind. Regardless, Gibson comes back on the redemption season of The Ultimate Fighter, loses to Brad Katona in a fight of the night at UFC 292. That was main evented by Aljamain Sterling, the same guy Gibson made his UFC debut against. Loses to Miles Johns after that in the Apex, and then beats Brian Kelleher by arm triangle choke, saving his little run in the UFC right now. But again, Cody Gibson is effectively able to wrestle. He's going to be an effective grappler in this fight. Yes, he gets submitted in his own right. He's been submitted 4 times to the 5 times he's been submitted, but Chad Anheliger has a glaring weakness in his game. He's lost 6 times by submission so far, and what has happened in every single fight Chad Anheliger has had in the UFC, he's been taken down. And even in the Contender Series as well. Munhoz Gafarov, even though Anheliger won the fight because he did more damage in that, whatever, damage-based scoring, I'm fine with it. Anheliger, he knocked down Anheliger, did knock down Gafarov as well. But Gafarov took him down 5 times. The win over Jesse Strader, where he ended up winning by knockout, sure, he knocked him down twice. He did knock down Strader twice, but Strader took him down 4 times. The loss to Alateng Ali got 2 takedowns. The loss to Jose Johnson, Chad Anheliger was the one on the offensive in terms of the wrestling, but Jose Johnson was able to get to his back, and Jose Johnson was able to submit him. And the Charlampus Gregoriou fight, if Gregoriou never ran out of gas, he would probably keep pushing the button on the wrestling game. Again, Gregoriou had a good first round, but eventually just couldn't keep it going as the fight moved on. I expect Cody Gibson to be there at the 15th minute. I've seen Cody Gibson still press on the gas at the end of the fight. Biggest example of that is his his loss in a fight of the night to Brad Katona. Again, he didn't win the fight, but he was still in there and still swinging at the last moments of that fight. I don't expect him to go away, and I expect Cody Gibson to be able to get to the legs, and I expect Cody Gibson to be able to get a submission eventually in this fight again. And Anheliger gets subbed all the time. Every single fight this guy's in, he either gets taken down or he gets submitted. I expect Gibson to do both. Give me Cody Gibson at 37 years of age to win by second round submission, sending the Canadians to 1-1. Again, both these guys are 37. These guys are not young by any stretch of the imagination, but I do like Cody Gibson. Again, I think what he does really hurts Chad Anheliger. Again, Anheliger's weaknesses can be exploited fairly easily by what Cody Gibson does. Give me Gibson to win the fight by second round submission. As we stay in the bantamweight division, we have got Siri Sidey taking on Garrett Armfield. A little bit surprised the Canadians the favor here, minus 165 for Burlington, Ontario's own in Siri Sidey. He is 0-1 in the UFC. I will get to his first fight against Ramon Tavares in just a few moments. That was in Canada earlier this year as well. But he's taking on America's own, Garrett Armfield, fighting out of, I believe he's out of Florida, if I'm not mistaken. Armfield's 2-2 in the UFC, came in on short notice to take on David Onama in his first fight, loses the fight by second round submission, comes back, beats Toshiomi Kazama by first round knockout. Kazama is not great. He beat Brad Katona after that by unanimous decision, and then lost to Brady Heastand in a pretty good back and forth fight on that Perez-Tyra card. Garrett Armfield, of course, the aggressor in terms of the wrestling, but on the feet, it was all Brady Heastand in that fight. And I would expect Armfield to fight with that similar style of match fight here with Siri Sidey. I would expect him to try to go out there and wrestle Sidey. We'll see. Again, he's 0-1 in the UFC, but he came in, won the Contender Series against Ramon Tavares, won the fight by first round knockout. So Sidey gets the contract. Tavares, it was in very early stoppage. Tavares fights back, wins on the Contender later that season, gets the contract by 32nd knockout, then fights Siri Sidey again at UFC 297. By the way, Tavares missed weight for that fight, but Tavares does win it. It's a tremendous fight in January of this year on the Strickland Duplessis undercard. Tavares wins the fight by split decision. Again, a really good back and forth fight, and a fight that if Siri Sidey fights against Garrett Armfield, he's going to win. This is all dependent, though, if Siri Sidey can stuff the takedowns at Garrett Armfield. Again, a UFC caliber fighter has not shot a takedown yet on Sidey, and what we've seen out of the regionals, or at least what I've seen out of the regionals, I've seen a decent ground game, a guy who's able to stuff takedowns and keep the fight standing. His only loss is to Mateo Vogel, a guy who got a shot in the Contender Series last year against Timmy Kwamba. He lost that shot, obviously, against Kwamba, but that is the only loss in the record for Sidey. Again, I think if Armfield's not able to take him down, I think Sidey outboxes him here. Yeah, Armfield has power, but he's a shorter bantamweight. He is built for the weight class, but he's only 5'6", and yeah, he hits hard again. We saw him land that big overhand right against Kazama and put him away. Was it a right or a left? I think it was a right. Yeah, we saw him with that big. Actually, it was a straight that put Kazama away, but still, we saw him put away Kazama with the power that he has. With all that being said, again, Siri Sidey's a much bigger fighter. He's 5'11". Garrett Armfield's 5'6", so it was a 5-inch reach advantage for the Canadian in this one. And as well, again, I think Sidey's the better striker. I think Sidey's the better volume striker. Yes, Armfield's going to hit you with his big power shots, but as a whole, I like Sidey to touch up Armfield in this fight. It's kind of similar, again, to what happened in that Brady Heastand Garrett Armfield fight, but I completely switched it around earlier. Again, Brady Heastand was the one on the ground. He was the one going out there and wrestling Garrett Armfield. Armfield got knocked out earlier in the fight, but Brady Hiestand, when he needed it in the third round, was able to chase a takedown, grab the back of Garrett Armfield, and win the fight by submission. Again, I think we get a stand-up fight here. If anything, I would give the wrestling advantage still though to Garrett Armfield. I know he has not shot a takedown in the UFC, but Armfield at least I know has that background of wrestling. Again, he's a guy that has been subbed multiple times in his career as well. I think we see a striking fight, and with the striking fight being said, I think this is all Series City winning this one. I'm taking City to win the fight by unanimous decision. I think it is an incredible back and forth fight. Again, I know Garrett Armfield's going to go out here and try to win this fight, but he's going to have to close distance in doing so. Again, it can be done. Obviously, just watch Ilia Topuria and Max Holloway from last night. Again, it can be done, but I do think City keeps his distance, and I do think City is just the quicker fighter, and I think he's got more range. Obviously, I know he's got more range, but I think he's quicker, and I think he's got more weapons to try to hurt Garrett Armfield. So give me Series City to win the fight, sending the Canadians now to 2-0. Again, both these guys are 28 going into this fight, but give me City to win the fight by unanimous decision. As we go on to the heavyweight division, no Canadians in this one, but Alexander Romanov taking on Rodrigo Nascimento. So originally, Alexander Romanov was supposed to take on Derek Lewis in this card. Interesting stylistic matchup. On the feet, a very easy fight for Derek Lewis, but of course, dealing with the takedowns of Romanov would have been difficult. They instead pivoted to Romanov Nascimento, and they gave Jonathan Diniz Derek Lewis later on in this card. Again, we will talk about that when we get there. But you've got two heavyweights in this one, in Romanov and Nascimento. This fight is somewhat easy to break down, I believe. Alexander Romanov, horrible striker, is just absolutely horrible there, but he can wrestle and he can just throw guys and take them down. At the same time, Rodrigo Nascimento's got good jiu-jitsu. My thing with that, though, I don't know how much that jiu-jitsu is going to play a factor, because Romanov's just so huge. He slimmed down for one fight and then proceeded to just put back all that weight, which is fine, actually, I think, because, again, there are just a lot of fat, unathletic heavyweights. You know, shout out to them, they're in the UFC. But again, I say this all the time when I talk about the heavyweight division. This is why Tom Aspinall is so successful. He's a great fighter, by the way. But that's why Aspinall is successful. That's why Cyril Gane's successful. That's why John Jones is successful. What do all those guys have in common? Stipe Miocic, too. They're all on the top of the weight class. Why? Because they're not fat heavyweights. All these, and again, the fat heavyweights, Romanov's different than most of them. But they all hit hard. Sure, everyone hits hard because they're so huge. But they're not athletic guys. Romanov, I'd say it's kind of athletic for his build because he does do something that a lot of those bigger heavyweights do. And again, Jailton Almeida is another great example of a guy who's still gonna have a bunch of success in this division because he's built and because he's an athlete. But Romanov, again, he moves all right for his weight. But what Romanov does, it's fairly simple. Again, I'll move my camera real quick. I mean, just look at Alexander Romanov. I mean, come on, look at this guy, right? Nascimento isn't the most built either. And now, I'm not saying I'm some physical specimen either, but I'm not a professional athlete contracted by the UFC. So, Alexander Romanov, I think, should be able to wrestle Rodrigo Nascimento in this one. It's all a matter of if Nascimento can effectively use his jiu-jitsu off his back. I don't think so because of how big Romanov is, and I get it, Romanov just got subbed by Jailton Almeida, but Jailton Almeida, again, is a huge exception in this weight class because he is, again, a physical specimen, and because he's an athlete, and because he's able to move so quick in this weight class. I'm fine with Romanov getting subbed by Almeida. Nascimento is not going to do the same exact thing. Nascimento is not going to be able to take down Romanov that quickly. If anything, it's going to be the other way around. Romanov's going to be the one pushing the pace in terms of the wrestling game, and Romanov should be able to get Nascimento down to the mat. I think that's going to happen. I think Nascimento has an advantage striking. Now, his striking doesn't blow me away by any stretch of the imagination, but I've seen him outstrike Dontel Mays in 2 fights before. So I would expect him to be able to outstrike Romanov. But the thing is, a lot of guys could outstrike Romanov. It's purely dependent on what Romanov's able to do on the ground. I am going to side with the fact that I think Alexander Romanov's going to win this fight by TKO. I think he wins it by first round, not TKO. Not because he can knock the guy on the feet, because if Romanov takes him down, he hits hard. His hammer fists land ferociously. Again, once he gets you down, yeah, the ground and pound is pretty nasty. It is. I think Romanov's able to get a takedown. I think he's able just to ground and pound Nascimento to victory. That's my prediction here. I'm going with Romanov by first round TKO. I can completely see a world, though, where he's not able to take him down and Nascimento just punches his head in on the feet. Because if Romanov's not able to get a takedown, he's screwed. Nascimento's takedown defense isn't the worst. Sometimes he'll just rely on his jiu-jitsu because he does have very good jiu-jitsu for this weight class. I don't think it plays too much of a factor just because of how physically strong Romanov is, and Nascimento's not quick on the ground either. Like Almeida, Nascimento will not be able to out-scramble Romanov like Almeida, if they got into scrambles, would have been able to do. I don't think he's stronger than Romanov either. Give me Alexander Romanov doing the fight by first round TKO. I would go submission normally with Romanov, but I wouldn't think so with the guy, the jiu-jitsu caliber of Nascimento. I think Romanov just punches his way to victory here. Give me a first round TKO with ground and pound and hammer fists for Alexander Romanov. Now we go to the bantamweight division, a very fun fight. Charles Jourdain coming in from Montreal. Nope, from Beloeil, Quebec. I'm gonna be honest, guys. I'm an American, so sometimes when I just see a French Canadian name, I kind of just assume they're all from Montreal. I kind of forget that, Quebec, the entire province, speaks, French. So, my apologies. He's from Quebec. He's taking on Los Angeles' own Victor Henry. This is going to be fun because both these guys kind of do the same exact thing, and these guys have very fan-pleasing styles of fights because they just go in there and they just swing the entire fight. That's what Jourdain does. That's what Victor Henry does. It's high output on both sides. Victor Henry's undefeated. He's 3-1 in the UFC with his only loss being to Rafael Assunção back in 2022. He's got a win over Honey Barcelos at UFC 270 in Anaheim, the win over Tony Gravely in the Virgin Hotel, I believe, in 2023, and then a Honey Yaya victory earlier this year by third round TKO. Again, what do you expect when Honey Yaya is not able to get a takedown? Okay, Victor Henry's got good takedown defense. Charles Jourdain doesn't really shoot takedowns. Actually, Diniz Jean Silva, but yeah, you're going to see a striking battle between Jourdain and Henry. Jourdain just did get knocked out, though, by Jean Silva on International Fight Week in 2020, or in June of this year. It's enough time. I think it is enough time for Charles. Again, this guy, the thing though about Charles Jourdain is that he eats a lot of damage in his fights, which is a little bit concerning if he's fighting Victor Henry, and just because he got finished just a couple months ago, actually, it's 4 months now. It's enough time, but Jean Silva did hit him with some shots. My thing is, I think Charles Jourdain, even with the TKO loss earlier this year, I feel like he's more equipped to win a back-and-forth striking battle against Victor Henry than Victor Henry is against him. Because he's 9 years younger than Victor Henry, because, again, Jourdain gets into these fights all the time, and I get it, Victor Henry does the same exact thing. He gets into all of these type of fights. I completely understand that. I think Jourdain should be able to get it done here. Again, he is just a younger version of Victor Henry. And how many of these fights can Henry stay in at this age? That's kind of my question on that. I get it. Again, he didn't take much damage in the Hani Yahya fight, and the Javid Basharat fight obviously got ended due to unfortunate circumstances. Actually, that's no joke. That was rough. But regardless, I think Jourdain does win in exchanges here. I'm not going to lie to you. I pick Jourdain in almost every single fight he's in just because I love watching the guy fight. Yeah, I have picked Jourdain in every single fight he's had in the UFC, except for the Shane Burgos fight, except for when he was supposed to fight Ilia Topuria in 2022, and that's it. I picked Jourdain in every single fight he's had in the UFC other than those. Yeah, I picked Jourdain in a lot of fights, and I'm going to continue to pick Charles Jourdain. I'm going to stick with my guy here. I think Jourdain does beat Victor Henry. We see a back-and-forth war. Another fight that could potentially win fight of the night. I think Jourdain's quicker, and I think Jourdain hits a little bit harder as well. Give me Charles Jourdain to win the fight, and he will get it done by unanimous decision. As we go on to the women's flyweight division, we have got Ariane Lipski taking on the Canadian in Jasmine Jasudavicius. So now the Canadians are 3-1 with Jourdain's victory. Now you've got St. Catharines, Ontario's own in Jasmine Jasudavicius taking on the Brazilian here in Ariane Lipski. I would expect Jasudavicius to win this fight. Ariane Lipski, Ariane de Silva, I don't know entirely what she's going by now, but this one feels pretty easy for Jasmine Jasudavicius here. If Jasudavicius is ever going to make a run to the belt, it needs to start now. Like, it needs to start now. Again, am I expecting Jasmine Jasudavicius to ever hold the world championship? No, but she's 35, about to become 36 at the start of next year. Jasudavicius needs to get going into the top 15. Again, she was given that opportunity on Mexican Independence Day last year in 2023, where she lost to Tracy Cortez by unanimous decision, but she's won 2 fights since, beating Priscilla Cachueta by submission in the 3rd round, and then beating Fatima Klein by unanimous decision after that. Jasudavicius, again, good wrestler, is able to mix it up on the feet as well, just does everything very well. She's a very well-balanced fighter, and I think she should have the edge over Ariane Lipski, who's coming off a loss to Creenie Silva, which isn't bad, but Silva was able to take her down 5 times. I would expect Jasudavicius to try to follow that same game plan as well. Again, Jasudavicius should be able to mix up her striking and her grappling fairly well in this fight, I do believe. Again, we saw Creenie Silva do that pretty effectively, even though it was just more of a grappling-heavy approach from Silva. But you look, Creenie Silva. But you look at what Ariane Lipski did prior to that fight, beating Casey O'Neill, who I'm not impressed with Casey O'Neill. Melissa Gatto, JJ Aldridge, like these aren't the best wins. And don't get me wrong, like Jasudavicius, who is she beat? Fatima Klein, Priscilla Cachoeira, Miranda Maverick, Gabriela Fernandez. Yeah, these aren't the best fighters, but I think Jasudavicius just does everything slightly better than Lipski on the ground in terms of wrestling exchanges. Sure, the Muay Thai game or the kickboxing game, I think we would slightly favor Ariane Lipski, but I think Jasudavicius is able to do enough here. I think she's able to clinch up pretty effectively in this fight. I think she's able to wrestle with Ariane Lipski, and I would expect Ontario's own Jasmine Jasudavicius to win this fight. Has anybody on this card been from Alberta? Am I completely tripping, or is there no fighter from Alberta on the UFC roster? No, Chad Anheliger. Oh, big spot for him. Big spot, even though he's from Calgary and not Edmonton. But regardless, I'm not even gonna try to make a comp to Canadians. Is that like, oh, he's from San Diego, but you know the fight's in LA, or is that like, I don't know, or it's like, oh, he's from Orlando, but you know the fight card tonight's in Miami. Like, I'm not trying to say that Alberta's Miami. I don't think it is, but actually no, wait. Oh, Edmonton. No, Edmonton's the one way up north. Oh, I do know that from hockey. I do know that. Oh yeah, okay. So this is like the Minneapolis of, I don't know. I'm trying to make a horrible comp. I don't know my Canadian geography that well, but I do know that Edmonton is like the most northern big city in the entire country, I do believe. If any Canadians are watching, please correct me, but I believe that is the case. I could be completely wrong. Regardless of that, so yeah, there is a fighter from Alberta in this card. It is Anheliger, and I don't think he's gonna have a great night. Regardless, I'm taking Jasmine Jasudavicius to win this one. I think she wins it by decision. I think she's able to clinch up with Lipski, and I think she's able to out-wrestle her way to victory. I think she's able to hang enough on the feet, where again, I don't think Lipski has a clear advantage striking. Give me Jasmine Jasudavicius to win the fight over Ariane Lipski by unanimous decision. As we go on to the bantamweight division, we have got Montreal's own Ayman Zahabi. Ariel Helwani's back. Wait, they're both from Montreal, aren't they? That's crazy. Maybe that's why they look alike. Ayman Zahabi takes on Pedro Munhoz. I see a lot of people taking Ayman Zahabi in this one. So the favorite right now is Pedro Munhoz, but on Tapology, more voters are siding with Zahabi in this one. Personally, I don't see it. I'm going to be honest with you. I get it. Zahabi's been on somewhat of a run. He's won 4 straight fights. And the Javid Basharat win, don't get me wrong, is great. I don't know if it's just Pedro Munhoz has fought tough guys or he's washed up. I don't know what it is. Again, Pedro Munhoz is no spring chicken, but at the same time, Ayman Zahabi's 36, about to turn 37. These are 2 older guys. Again, Munhoz has been around the top 5 and top 10 of the weight class for a very long time. He's just been around in the UFC for a while. Same with Zahabi in all fairness, but Munhoz has been fighting in this high level for a longer period of time. But he's only a year older than Ayman Zahabi. Again, you kind of expect that to not be the case because Munhoz has had 30 pro fights and Zahabi's had 13. But yeah, Munhoz isn't that much older than Zahabi, and I get it, Munhoz has lost and Zahabi's won 4 in a row, but let's compare these guys' last 4 fights. So Munhoz's last 4 fights are a loss to Kyler Phillips, which, okay, his loss to Rob Font wasn't great, a loss to Marlon Chito Vera, okay, just fought for the belt, Chris Gutierrez, not a bad win, a no contest against Sean O'Malley, I'll go a little bit further, a loss to Dominic Cruz, a loss to Jose Aldo, that's his last 6 fights for Pedro Munhoz. Zahabi's last 6 fights are Javid Basharat, Oreki Long, Ricky Tercios, Draco Rodriguez, Vince Morales, and Ricardo Ramos. And that's basically his entire UFC run. You want to go back one more, his UFC debut back in February of 2017. Yeah, I mean, it's just, I get it, Zahabi's 5-2, but he hasn't fought anybody all that great. I think Munhoz should be able to outstrike him, and I get it, Munhoz has been losing these fights, but he's been somewhat competitive in a lot of these. The Phillips fight, yeah, Kyler Phillips did kind of get away from him as the fight continued, but I mean, he was very competitive striking-wise with Marlon Chito Vera. He dropped Chris Gutierrez in their fight in Kansas City back in 2023. Again, he was competitive on the feet with Sean O'Malley, competitive enough until the eye poke. Again, I think it was, that fight, I mean, the end result of that fight, again, the takeaway that Sean O'Malley and Dana White are going to give you from that Pedro Munhoz-Sean O'Malley fight is, oh, Munhoz knew he was losing, he didn't want to fight. No, what came out of that fight was there's an eye poke, it was bad. O'Malley did nothing in the first round. Munhoz was competitive with him, and they just stopped the fight because obviously Munhoz couldn't see. And Munhoz is not looking for a way out. He was fighting pretty well in that fight. Munhoz loses a close fight to Dominic Cruz. That's fine. Jose Aldo loses a close fight too back in 2021 as well. Munhoz has been fighting elite guys, and he's been very competitive with these elite guys as well. Again, obviously, we just can't we don't want just a close fight in this fight with him and Zahabi. We want him to win if we are picking him, and that's what we are going to do. But I feel good about Munhoz in this one. I get he's 38 years old. I get he's taken a lot of damage in his career, and that sucks, but it's fine at the same time. I think Munhoz goes out here and wins this fight by unanimous decision. I don't see this support for Ayman Zahabi. I just don't see it. Again, yeah, oh great, he looks like Ariel Helwani and he's won 4 fights in a row. But again, let's look at the quality of opponents. I get Basharat's a great win. But all you got to do, I mean, this is easier said than done. What you do to beat the Basharats is stuff their takedowns. That is incredibly tough to do with both Javid and Farid. It is incredibly hard to do. And credit to Zahabi, he did that. But it's a much different stylistic fight because once he had Basharat on the feet, then Zahabi is a very good spot. And he's supposed to win a striking fight with Javid Basharat. Against Pedro Munhoz, yeah, Munhoz can wrestle, but it's going to be a striking fight with Pedro Munhoz. And that's all Zahabi has to do in this fight. And he doesn't have a significant advantage in the striking realm against Munhoz. I expect Zahabi to go out here and get the win. I expect Munhoz to go out here and get the win. I think he's able to go out there and win the fight by decision. Because again, I don't think Zahabi's able to hang with him on the feet. I think Munhoz is the better striker, and I think Pedro Munhoz wins this fight by unanimous decision. As we go on to the main card, we start things off in the welterweight division. We have got Mike Malott taking on Trevin Giles. So Mike Malott was the new star for Canada. By the way, Canada is now, what, 3-2? 4-2. Wait. I have them at 4-2, I believe. Wait, let me just do the math real quick. We picked Jamie Lynn Horth. We picked Gibson, 1-1. We picked Sidey, 2-1. We picked Jourdain 3-1, Jasudavicius 4-1. Yes, Munhoz 4-2. Okay, Mike Malott, Trevin Giles. Malott is coming out of, I believe he is he New Brunswick? I don't know. I know he trains with Alpha Male, right? Doesn't he? Yeah, he's in Sacramento now, but he is originally from Ontario, Canada. All right, he was not from New Brunswick. Actually, I don't know who the hell is from New Brunswick in the UFC. There's somebody though, isn't there? Is it Marc-Andre Barriault? No, he's definitely French. French-Canadian. Regardless, Mike Malott. He was the new Canadian star for the UFC. If he beat Neil Magny, guys, there's a chance he's in the co-main event of this card. There's a chance he's in the main event of this card. I mean, Mike Malott was their new Canadian guy, and he had Neil Magny. All he had to do was just hold on for their 30 seconds, and he's still undefeated. But now it's just there's so many question marks surrounding Mike Malott just because of how bad he looked at the end of that fight against Magny. He lost by 3rd round TKO. He was in control. He won the first 2 rounds of that fight, but he just wilted as the fight went on, and Neil Magny ended up winning it. Mike Malott was dominant on the feet in the first round. He was dominant on the ground in the second round, and in the third round, he just lost it. Truly, he lost it in that third round. His conditioning his cardio went to crap. He was wrestling. He was just kind of scramble wrestling early in the round. He was just, fighting to, get to legs and just trying to take Magny down. He did at points, but he got reversed or Magny stood back up. Then he took him down, and it was just good night for Mike Malott. He didn't get knocked out, but I mean, it was just, a beating on the ground once it got there because, again, Mike Malott just couldn't survive and just completely ran out of gas. And he hasn't fought since, obviously. And we can go over what Malott did prior to that, but let's go to Trevin Giles here, who's 16-6, who's coming off back-to-back losses. Guys, I think I know what's going on here. The UFC, again, kind of has their guys that they want to do all right. And, Trevin Giles is one of the guys that usually is used to pad guys' records. I'm going to be completely honest with you guys. Look at Trevin Giles' last 4 losses. I'm not saying Trevin Giles is a bad fighter. Actually, look at his last 4 losses, plus the fight he had before that first loss. Okay, let's go over all of them. Last fight, Carlos Prates. Prates is in the main event of UFC Vegas 100 next week, and Prates is an up-and-coming guy, knocked out Giles in the second round back in February. Gabriel Bonfim, undefeated at the time at UFC 291, Salt Lake City, Utah. What happened? Bonfim submitted him in the second round. Okay, before that, Preston Parsons, don't care. Luis Cozy, don't care. Michael Morales went in there, 12-0 at the time, main card of a pay-per-view, Anaheim, California. Morales knocked him out in the first round. Before that, Dricus du Plessis, future champion. Du Plessis had a back-and-forth fight with Giles until he bounced off the fence, boom, hit him with a right cross and knocked him out. Fight before that, Roman Dolidze, undefeated at the time, now a top 10 guy, 8-0. Trevin Giles actually won that fight, which was very confusing at the time and is still super confusing to me. There was a fight where Dolidze just kind of ran out of gas, couldn't wrestle the entire time. Okay, whatever, Trevin Giles won. Don't care. But this is kind of what the UFC does to Trevin Giles, guys. It kind of is. He's the stepping stone. And he's the stepping stone now for Mike Malott. It's not like, again, oh, wow, you beat Trevin Giles, but it's just a fight to get you back on track. That's all it is. And Mike Malott should dominate Trevin Giles here. He absolutely should. It's anywhere Mike Malott wants it. I think it's by submission. Trevin Giles has a more glaring weakness on the ground than he does on the feet. Yeah, guys are able to go out there and knock out Giles, but Giles is able to swing with, he was swinging with Dricos Du Plessis until he got knocked out. The fight was fairly even until the knockout from Du Plessis, but again, that's every DDP fight in all fairness. By the way, Du Plessis definitely beats Hamzat, I'm just saying. Sean Strickland, I don't know if he beats I don't know if Strickland beats Chimaev, though, I'll be honest with you. I think. I don't know. Hamzat's scary, though, I'm not gonna lie. I mean, did you see Whitaker's teeth after that fight? Did you see Whitaker's jaw? Oh, my goodness. Yikes. Regardless, I think Mike Malott goes out there and gets a submission against Trevin Giles. Trevin Giles' takedown defense is horrible. Trevin Giles' submission defense is not very good. Preston Parsons saw a lot of success on the ground against Trevin Giles. Gabriel Bonfim took him down, submitted him in 103 seconds. Right? Guys are able to effectively take down at Trevin Giles, and I would expect Mike Malott to do the same exact thing. He just can't run out of gas, but as long as this fight's over in the first round, I would expect him to win it. If this fight goes late in the fight, though, and if Mike Malott hasn't fixed his cardio issue, we have a problem. Why? Because this is the same exact kind of thing that happened to Trevin Giles versus Roman Dolidze. Roman Dolidze wrestled him early. Roman Dolidze was looking good, and then he lost the second and third rounds because he just ran out of gas. I hope that doesn't happen to Mike Malott, but we know Trevin Giles is capable of doing that against an up-and-coming guy, even though Dolidze was like 34 at the time. But Mike Malott's not really young either. He's about to turn 33 next month. He's actually, oh my goodness, he's older than Trevin Giles. That's insane. Regardless, Mike Malott wins the fight by first round submission. I did not realize he was older than, wow, that's crazy. Give me Ontario's own Mike Malott to go out there and submit Trevin Giles in the first round. As we go on now to a weight class above, it's the middleweight division. Marc-Andre Barriault takes on Dustin Stoltzfus. We have got, I believe he's gotta be from Montreal, right? Like, I'm gonna take a guess on this one. I think Barriault is from, he's from Quebec. He's from Gatineau? Okay. He trains out of Killcliff now in Boca Raton, Florida. But Marc-Andre Barriault against Dustin Stoltzfus. Guys, we know what this fight is. This is a fight to give the Canadian the victory. The Canadians are now 5-2 on the card. At least that's the way I see it so far. I feel like this is kind of, I wouldn't say a lot because Marc-Andre Barriault's lost back-to-back fights. But, guys, he's going to beat the crap out of Dustin Stoltzfus. I would expect it. Stoltzfus' one outlier is that whenever Puna Soriano, but Puna, I just never really turned out to be anything in the UFC. Let's just be honest with ourselves. And yeah, Dustin Stoltzfus was trading back and forth with Bruno Ferreira until he wasn't, until Ferreira hit him with that nasty spinning back elbow. And guys, that fight was 5 months ago? 4 months? That was 4 months ago. That was a brutal knockout that Dustin Stoltzfus took. And now he's fighting again? Yeah, I don't love it. Give me Marc-Andre Barriault. He just got knocked out 4 months ago. 4.5 months ago. And Stoltzfus' striking game always leaves a lot to be desired. Early in his UFC run, he was getting out-grappled. Kyle Dawkins out-grappled him. Rodolfo Vieira out-grappled him. Gerald Meerschaert was losing on the ground until he reversed him at the end of the third round and got a submission. His wins are Dwight Grant and Puna Soriano, but again, early in Stoltzfus' UFC run, he was just getting subbed by everyone, now grappled by everyone. But then after that, Abus Magomedov front kicked him in the face in Paris in 2022, and Bruno Ferreira spinning back elbowed him. I expect Marc-Andre Barriault to knock him out early, and I get it. Marc-Andre Barriault's coming off losses to Joe Pyfer and Chris Curtis. He lost that fight to Curtis, even though it was a split decision. It wasn't that competitive. I thought it was a pretty easy 2-1 Curtis in that fight. But we've seen Power Bar go out there and you can win striking fights. A very good fight in Canada back in UFC 289 against Eric Anders that he won by decision. A good win over Julian Marquez where he knocked him out in the second round. Again, we have seen Marc-Andre Barriault go out there and outstrike guys in the feet and just hurt his opponents. And again, that's kind of what happens to Dustin Stoltzfus. Stoltzfus' only opportunities to take down Marc-Andre Barriault, but this is an incredibly tough guy to take down. A guy that's really only been taken down at will by Anthony Hernandez and Jun Young Park. And those guys, and you know what those guys are very wrestling heavy fighters and grappling heavy fighters, but Stoltzfus doesn't have, I don't think, the offensive wrestling to do that. And I don't really think Stoltzfus will be able to take down Marc-Andre Barriault at will like that, like those two previous guys were able to. And really, again, the only guy to do it since what the pandemic hit was Anthony Hernandez. And look where Hernandez is after his main event win over Michel Pereira. Again, the guy is rising up the ranks in the division. Give me Marc-Andre Barriault to win the fight. I like him to go out there and win this fight by first round knockout. I wouldn't say it's a lock because Barriault's lost back-to-back fights, but he's been fighting higher level guys, obviously, in both Pyfer and Curtis. And I get it. Marc-Andre Barriault was just knocked out 4 months ago too, but there's no threat of him getting knocked out by Stoltzfus. Stoltzfus doesn't hit that hard, even though, yes, he was trading with Bruno Ferreira. I will give him that. but he's not going to hit hard enough to knock out Marc-Andre Barriault. Both these guys have depleted chins, I would say, just getting knocked out earlier in the summer. Give me Marc-Andre Barriault. He's the better striker, and everything kind of favors him to win this fight. I don't think Stoltzfus is able to take him down, and unfortunately for Stoltzfus, this probably marks the end of his UFC run. He's 2-5 right now. Again, it's kind of debatable that the UFC's giving him in a fight, but he's going to get a chance here in front of the crowd here in Edmonton, Alberta. Give me Marc-Andre Barriault to win the fight, sending the Canadians now to 6-2 on this card. As we go on to the light heavyweight division, no Canadians. We've just got 2 Brazilians fighting in Canada. It's like a polar bear in Arlington, Texas. I mean, maybe I'm missing something. Does Kyle Machado train in Canada? Oh, he does. I am missing something. Boom, that makes sense. Kyle Machado trains out of Vancouver, British Columbia, so he is going to be donning the Maple Leafs. Well, I know the Canucks play in Canada. I'm just saying, like, you know, that's Canada. They get the Maple Leaf in their flag. Regardless, by the way, the Canadian national anthem. I love the Canadian national anthem. I love the U.S. national anthem. But when you go to hockey games and they play "Oh Canada," it's pretty cool. I'm not gonna lie. Trust me, I love the Star Spangled Banner as well. But you know, "Oh Canada's great." I don't know, the 1-2 punch going from the Canadian national anthem to the U.S. It's something. Regardless, Kyle Machado taking on Ribeiro. So Machado will be representing the Canadians in this one, but again, both these guys are Brazilian. Ribeiro is 0-2 in the UFC. Kyle Machado is 0-2 as well. So for Ribeiro, again, wins on the Contender Series over Bruno Lopez. He wins that fight by first round knockout. Comes back, loses to Zhang Mingyang by first round knockout at UFC 298. And then comes back, loses to Magomed Gadzhiasulov by majority decision. He gets out wrestled in that one. But you know what Ribeiro does. He's a primary striker. He's trying to go out there and he's going to try to trade with you on the feet. That's what happened in the Mingyang Zhang fight, where Zhang eventually just knocked him out in the first round. But both those guys were trading, and that's what Ribeiro did in that fight against Bruno Lopez as well. You get him and Kyle Machado on this one, and guys, this one is not at 265 pounds. When I originally saw this, I was like, oh, okay, Ribeiro's going to go up. That's fine. Doesn't want to have to cut down to 205 anymore. No! This fight's at light heavyweight. Kyle Machado is going down to light heavyweight. He weighed in at 257, 252 in his last fight. He's dropping 46 pounds. I think he's gonna be massively depleted, guys. Ribeiro's huge for the weight class too. He's got an 81-inch reach. He's 6'3". I mean, that's a big guy for 205 pounds. And sure, Machado's gonna be pretty big too for the weight class, but he's not gonna be as built as Ribeiro, and he's not gonna have the strength I think Ribeiro has the weight class as well. Bigfoot's the nickname for Kyle Machado, but he's 6'4", 78-inch reach. That's great and all, but again, he's gonna have to cut 46 pounds from his last weigh-in to fight Ribeiro here. His last fight was a loss to Dontel Mays, where he got knocked down by Mays, and Mays just kind of outstruck him. Losing to Dontel Mays isn't great, and I get it, Ribeiro's losses aren't great either, but I don't know. Machado lost to Mick Parkin before that, got taken down. He was outstriking Mick Parkin, but I think Ribeiro wins this one, guys. I'm going to go with Ribeiro to take it. I'm going to take Ribeiro to win the fight by first round knockout. I don't like that Machado's going down here. He was not impressive at heavyweight, and I get it. Ribeiro has not been impressive at light heavyweight either, but he's staying in his weight class. He's the younger guy. Both these guys are fairly young. Machado's 30. Ribeiro is 28. But the reach advantage goes to Ribeiro. He's quicker, I think, than Machado. And I think he's got more power as well than Machado as well. And also, again, Ribeiro's always fought at 205 pounds. Given he's 15-7, not great. But Machado, again, has to deplete himself to get down. His chin's probably screwed. The UFC put this fight on the main card for a reason. They love their heavier weight classes. But at the same time, again, someone's probably getting knocked out. So it's going to be a cool highlight reel finish on either side of the main card. Even though, the thing is, though, Machado doesn't really knock anybody out either, though. He's one of those point-fighting heavyweights. So you better hope Ribeiro wins. I'm picking against the Canadian here. Give me Ribeiro to win the fight by first round knockout, sending the Canadians to 6-3 on this card. Ribeiro gets his first win in the UFC. And again, I'll just be honest with you guys. I don't quite understand the move down for Kyle Machado. We'll see how he looks in the scales, but I expect Ribeiro to go out here and pick up the victory. So give me Ribeiro to win the fight by first round knockout. As we go on to the feature bout, no Canadians in this one, but that's fine. You don't need a storyline because Derek Lewis is fighting the Black Beast. Derek Lewis looking for UFC win number 20 in this fight with Jonata Diniz. I am very I'm not gonna say confused. I think it's interesting that Jourdain Diniz is the favorite in this fight. The next fight too, I'm very, actually 3 fights in a row. The last fight, this fight, and the co-main event, I'm very interested. It's like I'm confused kind of why certain fighters are the favorites, but it's fine. Jourdain Diniz versus Derek Lewis will take the plus money. I'm sorry if that gives away the pick. Jourdain Diniz is not that impressive, guys. He's really not. He's 2-0, and again, you look, undefeated guy, 8-0, up-and-coming guy, fighting Derek Lewis. That's great. Maybe, you're thinking, okay, maybe they're trying to hype up Diniz because he's an up-and-coming guy, and if he can beat Lewis, then he's in the top of the weight class. Things they haven't really hyped Diniz like that before. He's never fought outside the UFC apex. It's not like he's one of their, guys they're trying to push. He's 33 years old, and he's only 8-0. And it's not like he's been knocking guys out left and right. He beats Austin Lane, and then he beats Carl Williams, and Carl Williams got cut after that performance. He was like 6-2 in the UFC, and he got cut. I get the guy's boring, but that's what they did to, what's that guy's name? Justin Willis, Big Pretty, I think his nickname was, and Curtis Blades beat him by decision and said, your new nickname's Big Titty. I think that's what he said, I'm not mistaken. If I'm not mistaken, I think that's what happened back in January of 2020. I don't think, has Justin Willis fought since? I don't think he has. That's his name, right? The AKA guy, Justin Willis. Quick check here on Justin Willis. Yeah, he hasn't fought. Oh, he was supposed to fight in the PFL. I forgot. He was supposed to fight Goltsov in 2021. Fight never happened. Okay, regardless. Jourdain Diniz, again, he beats Carl Williams, so I just made the comparison to Justin Willis, but still, it wasn't all that impressive. And sure, you have to fend off the takedowns the entire fight when you fight a guy like Carl Williams, who again is just a primary wrestler in the weight class, and the UFC doesn't like him because he's not a morbidly obese heavyweight who just swings and trades, which, sure, and that's kind of what we want to see the heavyweight division, but still, sometimes then you just get those boring decisions where both these guys are just gassed at the end of 15 minutes. Regardless, Jourdain Diniz wins that fight, and he beats Austin Lane before that. He's taking on Derek Lewis, who Lewis, he was on his little losing streak, lost 3 in a row, needed a win over Marcos Rodrigo de Lima, wins the fight, gets re-signed by the UFC, goes to Brazil, fights in a main event, loses to Jailton Almeida, but then beats Rodrigo Nascimento in St. Louis in a main event in May of this year, hits him with that big shot at the beginning of the 3rd round after dropping the second round after being on his back, comes back, as the 3rd round starts. Again, every round starts on the feet, and Derek Lewis found a way to knock out Nascimento, who again who was fighting earlier on in this card. I like this matchup more for Lewis than Romanov, because again, that fight, again, if he is able to set takedowns against Romanov, he would win, but I would probably side towards Romanov in that fight. I think Lewis might be a little bit lost, especially with a guy who is very strong like Romanov on the ground. I like this fight way more for Lewis. Jourdain Diniz can mix it up on the feet, but I think he's just going to fall victim to a knockout pretty quickly. I think Derek Lewis is going to find a way to connect and knock him out early in this fight. That's personally what I see. I don't think Diniz is able to hang. I don't think he's that much of a better technical striker than Derek Lewis. Personally, I don't see that. Derek Lewis obviously hits harder, and what Jourdain Diniz has done in his first 2 fights doesn't impress me that much to the point where I, have to pick him to beat Derek Lewis. I don't think so. I mean, again, he's got wins over Carl Williams and Austin Lane. Again, if he beats Derek Lewis, great for him. It's a huge step up in competition and a huge win that will break him into the top 15 of the weight class. But for me personally, guys, I kind of see this as a way for them to build up Derek Lewis's knockout record, a way for him to get him into the 20-win club. Again, I don't know how many fights Derek Lewis has left. He said that in his post-fight interview when he won in St. Louis. Again, if he wins this fight, he's probably going to take his shorts off again, maybe throw his cup in the crowd regardless. Derek Lewis said this again in his own right. He doesn't know how many fights he has left. I think this is a fight to get him more wins on the record, get him another knockout, to extend the knockout, record as well. I think Derek Lewis gets it done. I gave a plus 140 dog, but I don't see anything out of Diniz other than the fact that, okay, he's undefeated. That really, tempts me to pick him in this fight. He's not overly impressive. He's not he's not that much quicker than Lewis. He doesn't hit harder than Lewis. I'm taking Derek Lewis to go here. Give me the Black Beast to win this fight. He will get it done by 1st round knockout. As we go on to our co-main event, it is a 5-round co-main event. Aaron Blanchfield, who is not Canadian, takes on Rose Namajunas, who is not Canadian. There's no more Canadians the rest of the way. Does Albazi train in Canada? No, he trains at Extreme Couture. Yeah, there's no more Canadians in the rest of the card. That's fine. We get Namajunas and Blanchfield here. For Thug Rose, she's coming off a victory in her last fight against Tracy Cortez in Denver, Colorado. She won the fight by unanimous decision. For Aaron Blanchfield, she's coming off a 5-round main event loss to Manon Fiore. And what, again, Blanchfield was not able to do in that fight was take down Fior. And then when she wasn't able to take down Fior, she was a sitting duck on the feet. I think there's a very good chance that same exact thing happens here. I don't know. I don't think Erin Blanchfield's going to be able to take down Rose Namajunas. I get it. Erin Blanchfield has got good wrestling. She's got a good overall grappling game. But Rose Namajunas is really good there as well. Cortez took down Namajunas a couple times, but Namajunas in her own right took down Cortez 5 times. Hebos took down Namajunas a couple times, but Namajunas was able to get back up to her feet. I don't think Blanchfield's that much better on the ground than Rose Namajunas. I truly don't think so. I think, again, Rose poses a huge threat to a lot of these fighters at 125 pounds. She is a tough fight for a lot of these fighters at 125 pounds. And again, Erin Blanchfield is one of those fighters that is going to have an extremely difficult time in beating Rose Namajunas. That's the way I see it. Rose has a 10 times better striking game than Erin Blanchfield. And on the ground, Erin Blanchfield is better than Rose. I will give her that. But again, the problem that Erin Blanchfield had in her fight with Manon Fior, where, again, Manon Fior took her down more times than Erin Blanchfield was able to take her down. But the problem that Blanchfield had, she only attempted 3 takedowns in that fight. But again, she wasn't able to attempt any takedowns because of the reach advantage and because of the way Manon Fior was able to keep distance away from her. Fior was, again, able to just keep away from Blanchfield the entire fight. Blanchfield was not able to close, and she was just getting jabbed up and pieced up the entire fight. Again, I don't think it's going to be the same exact way in this one because, again, I don't think Rose has a better striking game than Fior. Obviously, we've seen that fight a couple years ago in France. Again, Fior beat Rose, but Rose should fight the same style of fight that Fior fought. Keep at distance, use your jab, not let Blanchfield get in close, and just punch your way to a decision. Because Blanchfield is not the greatest striking fighter. She's just not. I don't think she's bad. Again, I saw her trade with Jessica Andrade, but that's another shorter fighter like Blanchfield. When she fights these taller fighters, again, Fior is huge for the weight class. And yes, Rose is not going to be, Rose is not a short fighter at all. She's 5'5". Blanchfield's 5'4", but still. When Blanchfield fights a bigger fighter like Manon Fior, and again, Rose is not that big a fighter, but I'm just making this discussion point. She's going to get jabbed up, and she's going to have a problem because she's not going to be able to close distance. The same thing applies in this fight, just because, again, Rose is a much better striker than Blanchfield. That's why. The reason she was able to do that against Andrade is because, again, Blanchfield was able to close in distance. She was able to swing with Andrade. She didn't. If you want to give Blanchfield one thing, she's not scared. She was not scared at all with Jessica Andrade's power. She did not care that was coming back at her in that fight. And I don't think she's going to be concerned much what's going to come back at her, coming back at her in this Namajunas fight either. I don't think so. But at the same time, Rose is a better striking game. Rose should be able to use her kicks. Rose should be able to jab. I like Namajunas to win this fight. I really do. On the ground, again, yeah, Blanchfield might get her takedowns, but Namajunas is decent enough off her back. She should be able to get back up. We saw her get back up against Cortez, against Hebos. Again, Namajunas is coming off back-to-back main event wins. I don't know where it puts her in the title race, obviously, because we know Fior is going to be fighting Shevchenko next. I think Manon Fior wins that fight, I'm going to be honest with you. I was not impressed with Shevchenko's last fight, even though she didn't, she won the fight, won every single round. I wasn't impressed. At the same time, again, I was definitely not impressed at all with Alexa Grasso, regardless. I think we get Shevchenko-Fior next. And I think at the same time, then we probably have to get Thug Rose versus Alexa Grasso. Macy Barber's in the picture as well, but I think, again, with Rose being active and Barber being hurt, not getting that fight against Namajunas in Denver earlier this year, I think Rose should be rewarded with the fight against the former champion Grasso. And in return, I would say, hey, they're both at the top of the weight class at this point. I get you want to keep Natalia Silva and Macy Barber potentially away from each other because they're two up-and-coming fighters, but you kind of have to make that fight. Winner finally gets their step up in competition. Winner finally maybe gets a title shot as well. So I would do Natalia Silva taking on Macy Barber. At the same time, I would also go with Alexa Grasso fighting Rose Namajunas. So that's how I booked the weight class. Again, assuming Namajunas wins the fight. If Blanchfield gets it, yeah, then give Blanchfield Grasso. But I don't think Blanchfield is able to take down Rose, and I think Rose just pieces her up on the feet as well. So it could be Thug Rose Namajunas to beat Erin Blanchfield. She will get it done by unanimous decision. I think it's just going to be I think she's going to outpoint her through the entire fight. So it's going to be Thug Rose by unanimous decision. As we go on to the main event in the flyweight division, we have got Brandon Moreno taking on Amir Albazi. So originally when Brandon Moreno lost in Mexico last year against Brandon Royval, he said he wanted to take some time off. He said he wanted to, again, maybe, I didn't know. I thought time off was about a year. Well, Moreno's back in here in 2024 in another main event. He's taking on a guy now, Albazi, who should be involved in the title picture as well. Again, the rightful number one contender should be Brandon Royval. It should be. I get it. Royval has already lost to Pantoja twice, but he's only lost to him once for the belt. I think that should have been the next fight. I'm fine with Kai Asakura. It goes to show kind of, what's going on in the weight class right now. That's fine. We can talk about the future of the flyweight division in just a moment here, but I'm fine with Kai Asakura fighting Alexandre Pantoja. I think Pantoja absolutely dominates Kai Asakura, I'll be honest with you guys. I think Kai Asakura is good, but I think it's a mismatch. And to be honest with you, really stylistically, Pantoja should have his way against Kai Asakura. Regardless of that fact, again, Kai Asakura, Manel Kape was able to beat him a couple years ago. I think, oh God, who else beat Asakura? Horiguchi did as well, I believe, right? I think Horiguchi beat him. Regardless of that, Moreno lost to Royval as the number one contender. He was coming off a win, obviously, against Tatsuro Taira. Albazi's another guy who's in the title picture as well. I think they're going to do the winner of this fight against Royval if they want to keep Royval busy, but I think Royval just might wait for the championship shot as well, because he should get it after beating, again, Moreno, the first guy to beat Moreno, not named Figueiredo or Pantoja, and he was able to go out there and beat the undefeated Tatsuro Taira. Regardless of that, Amir Albazi and Brandon Moreno is an interesting fight. Albazi's undefeated in the UFC. He is 5-0. He's coming off a split decision win over Kai Kara-France in a fight that he didn't win. He did not win that fight. Now, originally, Albazi and Moreno were supposed to fight in Mexico City. Again, the fight that Royval stepped into and ended up beating Moreno, that was supposed to be Albazi in Mexico against Moreno. Of course, didn't make the fight. I believe he got injured. Albazi, though, again, he lost the Kai Kara-France fight. And by the way, I'm no fan of Kai Kara-France. I'm just not. I'll be honest. Unfortunately, guys, I'm be honest with you, I just like the CKB guys. I'm not too much of a fan other than Alexander Volkanovski. They just kind of piss me off, okay? No, they just do. I'm sorry. They just do. Again, I don't really pick with much bias, and I don't think I have with the CKB guys, but I don't know. They're just, I don't know. I don't know. It's probably guys, to be honest, it's Adesanya. Adesanya just pisses me off, so the rest of the CKB guys kind of piss me off as well. Kai Kara-France kind of does too. Anyways, I thought Kai Kara-France easily won the fight. I believe we picked Kai Kara-France to win that fight as well, because he did. I mean, he dominated the fight on the feet. I don't know how Albazi got the nod. And Albazi's rest of his run in the UFC is not all that impressive. Again, he gets a robbery decision over Kai Kara-France. He beats Alessandro Costa by third round TKO. Okay, he beats Francisco Figueiredo, who's not the good Figueiredo brother, by first round submission. He beats Jogla Shumagula by unanimous decision, and then he submits Malcolm X Gordon in his debut fight in the UFC in 2020 on Fight Island. This is a huge step up, and I get it. Moreno looked kind of slow in that Royval fight. There's no reason that fight should have been a split decision. That was absolutely ridiculous. Royval 100% won the fight. Moreno is coming off back-to-back losses for the first time since 2019. I expect Moreno though to beat the crap out of Albazi here. I'm gonna be honest with you guys. I don't think it's close. Where does Albazi beat Brandon Moreno? On the ground, maybe. I know for a fact he's not going to be able to outstrike Brandon Moreno, even though, yes, Moreno got beat striking-wise against Royval, and Royval is beating him to the punch. I completely get that 100%. Albazi's not going to be able to do that to Brandon Moreno. Royval is 10 times the striker Albazi is. Albazi's kind of slow on the feet. Again, we saw Kai Kara-France piece him up, and Kai Kara-France, again, should have got the 5-round decision against Albazi in that fight as well. I like Brandon Moreno to absolutely dominate this fight, as long as he's not completely out the sport, which I don't think he is. Again, the pathway to the belt is not entirely there, but again, the UFC would love to get Moreno another title shot because he is a marketable guy and he's a big champion for them. Again, the Mexican market, obviously. Why this fight wasn't, again, the Sphere, I don't know. That's beyond me. But I like Moreno to go out here and win this one. I think he gets it done by decision. I think if he needs to, he can out-wrestle Albazi, but I do think this fight's just won and lost in the feet. I think it is primarily a striking fight that Moreno will just go out here and win. Albazi, again, he's not going to be able to take down Moreno, I don't think. He doesn't do that often, but if he tries to, I don't think he's going to do that against Moreno. And simply put, I see a kickboxing fight for 25 minutes here, and I'd be hard-pressed to pick against Brandon Moreno in that style of fight. I don't think Brandon Moreno's last fight against Brandon Royval was, wow, Moreno's horrible. It was, look how good Brandon Royval is. Truly, that's how I see it. That's how I see that fight. I'm taking Brandon Moreno to beat up on Amir Albazi. I don't think Albazi is in the elite of the weight class at 125 pounds. Again, there is an elite of the 125-pound division. I'm not going to talk about Asakura because I just don't know where to place him in the division right now. I don't think he deserves a title shot, but that's besides the point. I get why they're doing it, though. I'm not mad at why they're doing it. I'm really not. If he wins, great. You got a huge Japanese star as a UFC champion. That's incredible for the UFC. But Pantoja should be fighting Asakura next. Obviously, right for the elite is Pantoja, Royval, Moreno. Everybody else after that. The way they should match things up, I think they should go Royval fighting the winner of Asakura and Pantoja. They should. Again, I don't think you can deny the guy a title shot after being an undefeated Taira and being the first guy to beat Moreno in a non-title fight, or being the first guy to beat him not named. Figueiredo or Pantoja. Kai Kara-France should fight Brandon Moreno. They should do that rematch. That should be next. After Moreno beats Albazi. That's what should happen. Albazi should fight Tatsuro Taira. And then Asu Albayev. Screw it. Give him Manel Kopp. No, Manel Kopp's got to fight, doesn't he? No, I don't think he does. Manel Kopp might have a fight. Let me check. Let me quickly check if Manel Kopp has a fight scheduled. I thought maybe he does. Does Manel Kopp have a fight? He does. Bruno Silva. Okay. So let's do Asu Albayev versus... I don't know if we want to throw Steve Erceg in that fight, but you can. You can do him and Steve Erceg. Albayev's a guy I don't think a lot of guys are really lining up to fight. I think he's beatable, but Albayev is one of these guys who's quickly rising up the weight class, obviously, with his win over Nicolau. Albayev's now the 7th ranked guy. But that's how I'd match up the weight class next. I think, again, the next fight for Moreno should be a rematch with Kai Kara-France, and if you can win this fight against Albazi and win the fight after that against Kai Kara-France, I think we can look title again for Moreno. Regardless, the winner of this fight should rematch Kai Kara-France. I think they should. Actually, Moreno's already beat Kai Kara-France twice. Regardless, give me the trilogy next. Give me a trilogy. Put it, if you can, Moreno can bounce back. Give him on the February card in Australia. If not, put it as a fight night main event somewhere in the States or actually anywhere. I don't care. That's a good fight next. Or if Albazi does it again, same thing. Rematch with Kai Kara-France. I think both these guys should be fighting Kai Kara-France next if they win. And I'm going with Brandon Moreno, though, to beat Amir Albazi. I don't think Albazi is able to outstrike him at all. And wrestling-wise, obviously, we're taking Moreno there. Moreno should just beat his head in for 25 minutes, and it should be a very lopsided 5-round decision. Give me 50-45 Brandon Moreno. This is a levels fight. Brandon Moreno is just way more advanced and way better than Amir Albazi. So give me Moreno in the main event. Folks, thank you all for watching UFC Edmonton Moreno versus Albazi predictions here on the channel. Make sure to hit that subscribe button down below for more. Make sure to leave a like if you did enjoy the video. Make sure to comment if you do disagree with any of the picks. We'll be back next week for UFC Vegas 100 Magny versus Prates. Folks, thank you all for watching. Make sure that subscribe button down below for more. And Mamba forever.